Okay, so looking at the RAM right now, I see that Touch Designer's using about a gig. And that's because there's actually not a lot that it's got to process. However, whenever this file gets put further down and the G code is produced, it requires a lot of processing to view that. So just for interest's sake, I'm going to do this. And when I do it, Touch Designer is going to actually hang. So I went to save the contents in this node, and by doing that, all the calculation that's required to turn our original file into G code happens. And while it's happening, Touch Designer is going to be unresponsive, and you're not going to be able to do anything in your network. And this is part of the reason why we've partitioned it and locked up the two edges. While this is going down, we don't want to change anything that's happening with it communicating with other networks. So we just let it run. And depending on how big the file you have in here, this can really rock your RAM. So make sure you have lots of RAM. That's a good way of doing it. Or start with really, really small resolution, really simple shapes. Like if you were to just cut a circle or do a little pocket, it would be much less points of data than doing a 3D pixel to pixel conversion. So that's what's going on here. So it's patient mode, and to avoid that all so much, we can go to our other instance of Touch Designer and begin working on something to cut, the next thing we're going to cut. So I've got a few networks here that I've been playing around with. I'll just start with something simple. This demo is RGB raster milling, so we're going to be starting with an image. And this is just a stock ramp top put to a stock Cartesian to polar transformed, and then made a composite with itself before it was transformed, thus removing the little wedge of darkness that was in there, giving us a perfect circle, the center being the lightest and the outside being the darkest, which we can use as the basis for a bowl or a dish or something like that, which is something pretty conventional to cut, pretty common. And then you can see that's fireworks that I took a photograph of, and I've added that into the background. So let's just check on how we're doing here. Oh, and we're back. It's done. So we can go back to Touchcutter now. It's done, and I can save my G-code file. I don't need to do that as long as I don't change what's in the pipe. This viewer should be fine to look at now and fine to save and whatever. So that's the formatting of our final G-code. If anyone's wondering, you got a header, coordinates for each one. The first one's actually a safety stop, and there's other safety stops that have been put in there that are above your zero plane. And yeah. Okay, so that's a start on how to think about the network basics in Touchcutter. Lots of RAM, locks on the ins and outs. Be patient when the network locks down when you save your G-code, or at least when you process the G-code. By the way, now that it's here, I could lock it into this null and then change the network again, and whatever's in this null will be ready to send out the touch out, and you can that doesn't compromise your network again when you're sending your file to your other computer. If you don't have another computer, if you're like sending it directly over Wi-Fi to an Arduino or something like that, you can just save it on this computer. It saves as a .txt file, so that's good for program like Universal G-Code Sender, which I recommend because it's an easy way of sending it. I've tried sending these files with easel, but the really large ones will crash easel on a weak computer because just the way it processes things, my computer can't handle it, and easel takes too long to generate the toolpath. So whereas Universal G-Code Sender just sends it right away. So that's something to think about. If you are going to send files over easel, you'll have to rename the text file to .nc, or just be aware of that for whatever else you're doing. And yeah, so I'm going to make another video about how to use the program.